Imagine for a second that you are handed absolute power over the entire known world.
Oh boy.
Right. I mean, the treasury, the armies, the power of life and death over millions of people, it is all yours. But the catch is, all you really want to do is sit quietly in a room and study philosophy.
Yeah.
How on earth would you keep your sanity?
I mean, it sounds like a recipe for a total psychological breakdown, honestly.
Mm.
Because historically, when you give someone absolute unchecked power, it usually just strips away their humanity.
Oh, for sure.
We expect tyranny, we expect corruption, or at the very least, overwhelming paranoia.
That is exactly the default setting for empires. But today's deep dive into our source material proves there was this massive glaring exception. We are looking at the private diary of a Roman emperor, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.
Such an incredible text.
It really is. And for this deep dive, we're using a very specific historic edition. It was translated by Jeremy Collier and revised with this brilliant introduction by Alice Zimmern back in 1887. So our mission today is to extract the core of Stoic resilience from a man who ruled under unimaginable stress, and to discover how his private gratitude list can actually serve as a mental operating system for you today.
And it is crucial to establish right up front that this text was never meant for publication.
Yeah, that changes everything.
It really does. This wasn't a PR piece. It wasn't some manifesto designed to make him look good to the Senate. It was what they called a commonplace book.
Just a diary, basically.
Exactly. A completely personal diary written by a man who somehow fulfilled the philosopher Plato's impossible ideal. Plato famously said that a state would only see the light of day when philosophers become kings, and specifically when those kings govern reluctantly.
And he really didn't want the job.
No, Marcus Aurelius was the ultimate reluctant ruler.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can really grasp the magic of this diary, we have to understand the immense, crushing weight of the author's reality. This wasn't some armchair philosopher pontificating from a comfortable, sun-drenched villa.
Far from it. Marcus was essentially drafted into this life. He was earmarked for the throne from a very young age by the Emperor Hadrian, and then officially adopted by Antoninus Pius.
Just told, hey, you're going to run the world one day.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But he had zero interest in the luxury of the palace. By the time he was just 11 years old, he had already adopted the absolute monastic severity of the Stoic philosophy.
By age 11?
Yeah, 11.
Mm.
He actually chose to sleep on a hard couch covered only with rough animal hides. He was intentionally training his mind to reject physical comfort.
Which is wild for an 11-year-old destined for absolute wealth. But he needed that training because his actual reign, which started in 161 AD, was brutally difficult.
That was a nightmare.
Yeah, the Roman borders were constantly under threat. He had to personally travel to the freezing front lines to fight off German tribes like the Quadi on the Danube and the Parthians in the east.
Right.
Picture this. He wrote parts of this beautiful, serene diary directly in the freezing mud and carnage of military camps at Carnuntum.
In the middle of a war zone.
Exactly. If we translate the psychological weight of that to today, it's like a modern CEO trying to maintain a profound Zen meditation practice right in the middle of a vicious, hostile takeover, while the global market is crashing and the corporate headquarters is literally on fire.
The CEO analogy is spot on, but even then, the stakes for Marcus were so much higher. The fires weren't just at the borders.
Right, there were internal issues too.
Massive ones. Inside the empire, he faced catastrophic plagues imported from the east. One of them was so severe it actually killed his co-emperor, Lucius Verus.
Wow.
And there were massive famines that threatened to tear Rome apart from the inside. And perhaps the most painful blow of all was a direct betrayal by his own highly trusted general, Avidius Cassius.
Over in Syria, right.
Yes, he revolted in Syria and tried to claim the entire empire for himself.
See, the way Marcus handled that specific revolt is one of the most striking details in the text. It tells us so much about his cognitive filter. Avidius Cassius was killed by one of his own officers before Marcus could even get to him. But when Marcus finally arrived in Syria to put down the rebellion, he found a stash of secret correspondence. Letters that would have explicitly implicated other senators and leaders in the treason.
And what did he do?
He didn't read them. He just burned all the documents. He destroyed the evidence of who betrayed him. And he actually mourned the general's death because, as he put it, he was robbed of the luxury of forgiveness.
It is a stunning display of restraint. He actively refused to let a cycle of vengeance begin. But if we look closely at Zimmern's introduction to the text, this raises an important question.
Oh, the paradox.
Yeah, there's a glaring historical paradox here that we have to address. Despite this incredibly gentle, forgiving nature, a man who literally burns the names of his traitors. Marcus Aurelius permitted the severe persecution of Christians during his reign.
Including prominent figures like Justin Martyr and Polycarp.
Exactly. It feels completely at odds with his character.
It really does. It's jarring to read. And to be clear, we are just looking at how our source text contextualizes this. Alice Zimmerman's introduction provides a very specific historical explanation for this blind spot.
Right. She lays out the Roman perspective.
Yeah, she notes that from the Roman administrative perspective, this persecution was viewed as entirely political, not religious. He was willing to forgive personal treason, like we saw with his general, but as a Roman emperor, his ultimate non-negotiable duty was to the stability of the state.
Precisely. The text explains that the Romans were actually quite used to absorbing new gods and foreign philosophies. That wasn't the issue at all.
So what was the issue?
The friction came because the early Christians absolutely refused to worship the emperors or participate in the official state religion. In the eyes of the Roman state machine, that refusal made them political rebels actively subverting the existing social order.
And the source also points out a really tragic element of ancient public relations. Because the Christians had to hold their meetings in secret to avoid arrest, these bizarre, completely false rumors started spreading among the regular Roman populace.
Oh, the rumors were wild.
Yeah, there were literal rumors of Christians eating human flesh, which was likely a grotesque misunderstanding of the communion ritual. So, according to the text, the emperor was essentially allowing the rigid Roman law to take its course against people he viewed as dangerous political dissidents, rather than targeting their personal spiritual beliefs.
It is a tragic historical reality, and as Zimmer notes, it clearly shows the limits of his understanding regarding this new movement. He was trapped by his role as the preserver of Roman tradition.
Yeah, he was a product of his time in that regard.
Absolutely. But to understand how he maintained his own sanity amidst all this, the forever wars, the plagues, the betrayals, the weight of the state, we have to look at the Stoic philosophy he used to process his reality.
I really want to dig into that because the underlying physics of Stoicism are honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around at first.
They really are. Stoicism was founded by Zeno around 290 BC, and its view of the universe is heavily based on an older philosopher, Heraclitus, specifically his concept of perpetual flux.
Everything is always changing.
Exactly. The Stoics believed that before there was a heaven or an earth as we know it, there was a primitive fiery ether. And this ether systematically changes into everything else. From fire comes vapor, then water, then earth.
Okay, but it all starts with fire.
Yes, but that fiery substratum never actually leaves. They believe that even the stars aren't just dead rocks. They are living, fiery masses embedded in this ether.
Wait, I need to pause here and admit some confusion. So they literally believe the universe is made of physical fire. How does a primitive theory about fire help a guy survive a plague or a war?
That is the crucial leap to understand. It wasn't just literal hot fire you could cook over. This fiery ether was considered the literal soul of the universe.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was the physical manifestation of divine reason, or logos. So the universe isn't just dead, random matter bouncing around. It is a highly ordered, living organism powered by this rational fire.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because of this fiery ether concept, the Stoics had a very specific, almost dizzying view of time. They believed the universe periodically ends in a massive, great conflagration.
Right, it all burns up.
Everything burns up and then it repeats, exactly as before. The text notes that they believed there will be another Socrates. He will marry another nagging wife named Xanthippe. He will be condemned again by his accusers Anytus and Meletus, and he will drink the poisonous hemlock all over again.
Yes, a literal eternal return.
It is a cosmic, inescapable Groundhog Day.
Everything that has happened will happen again in the exact same way, because the divine reason orchestrating it is perfectly rational. So it will unfold the exact same way every time.
But I have to push back on this. If you are Marcus Aurelius and you truly believe you are trapped in a cosmic Groundhog Day where everything just repeats infinitely, doesn't that just breed total apathy?
You would think so, right?
Or complete nihilism? I mean, why would the Emperor of Rome bother trying to be a good person or try to save his people from a famine if the script is already locked in?
What's fascinating here is how the Stoics, and Marcus in particular, reverse engineered that exact problem. They didn't see it as a prison. They saw it as the ultimate connection.
How so?
Because this fiery ether is the soul of the universe, and because humans are created out of this universe, every single one of us possesses a tiny actual material spark of this divine reason inside us.
Oh, wow. So we literally share a mind with the cosmos. And by extension, we share a mind with the guy cutting us off in traffic.
Yes, we aren't just kin through blood or family trees. We are kin through this shared divine mind. Marcus deeply believed that humans are quite literally made for mutual assistance. In the text, he compares humanity to the working parts of a single body. He says we are like the feet, the hands, and the eyelids, as the rows of the upper and under teeth.
I love that image. The upper and lower teeth, they have to work together to chew the food. Otherwise, you just bite your own mouth.
Precisely. If you harm another person, you are quite literally harming a part of your own organism. You are injuring the shared divine spark. So his motivation to be good isn't about getting a reward in heaven or changing the inevitable cycle of the universe.
It's just about being human.
It's about living in harmony with your own nature right now. To do evil to someone else is to act against your own anatomy.
Which brings us perfectly to the actual diary itself, Book I of the Meditations. Because knowing this cosmic theory of upper and lower teeth is one thing, but Book I shows us how Marcus actually trained his brain to apply it on a daily, intensely practical level.
It's an amazing document.
It really is. It is essentially the ultimate, meticulously detailed gratitude list.
And it is radically specific. He doesn't just thank the gods in some vague, performative way. He sits down, presumably in a freezing tent on the frontier, and lists out his private mentors, thanking them for very specific character traits they modeled for him.
He is actively programming his mind.
Exactly.
And some of them are amazingly relatable. Like, he thanks his mother for teaching him a plain, inexpensive way of living, despite the fact that they were practically royalty.
Yeah.
He thanks his governor for teaching him to completely ignore sports fanaticism. Specifically, the text says he learned not to take sides with the green or blue factions at the chariot races, or to favor the Parmularius or Scutarius gladiators.
Who write the rival gladiator factions of his day.
It's the Roman equivalent of dying on a hill for your favorite football team. It's like the Emperor of Rome saying, "Thank you for not letting me become a toxic sports bro."
Exactly. It grounds him in the everyday. He is reminding himself not to get swept up in trivial tribalism. And he thanks his mentor, Rusticus, for giving him the memoirs of Epictetus, which fundamentally changed his life.
Such a great detail.
Which is incredibly poetic when you think about it. Epictetus was a former slave who became a philosopher. And here is the Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man alive, bowing to the wisdom of a slave.
Wow.
Rusticus also stopped Marcus from parading around the house in his formal senator's robe.
Yeah.
He taught him to just be a normal, approachable human being when he was at home.
The lessons in humility he lists are just incredible. I mean, think about how we act online today. Marcus writes that Alexander the grammarian taught him a crucial lesson. When someone makes a grammatical error or mispronounces a word, you don't rudely correct them.
You would jump down their throat.
Exactly, to show how smart you are. You just politely use the right word in your own reply so they hear it naturally.
A rule of etiquette that could single-handedly fix modern internet discourse.
Absolutely. And then there's Alexander the Platonist, who taught him a rule that I am definitely going to steal. He taught Marcus never to use the phrase, "I'm not at leisure," or, as we'd say today, "I'm just too busy," as an excuse to ignore the needs of your friends.
It's all about systematically stripping away the ego. This is a man who could literally have anyone executed for annoying him, and his entire diary is an exercise in reminding himself that he isn't inherently better than anyone else.
Which leads to what I think is the most piercing insight in the entire source text. Marcus has this deep, almost aggressive critique of people who demand gratitude for their good deeds. I look at it like charging emotional usury on our kindness.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You know those people who do you a favor, but then they hold it over your head forever?
Oh, yeah. They want the receipt, they want the applause, the recognition. They view kindness as a transaction.
Yes. And Marcus writes that a good person should be like a vine bearing grapes, or a galloping horse, or a bee making honey. The bee doesn't make honey and then turn around and demand a thank you from the hive.
It just does its thing.
It just does its work, produces what it was made to produce, moves on to the next flower, and does it again. Are we really just charging interest on our good deeds when we demand to be thanked?
That is exactly how he views it. He writes that virtue shouldn't require a flourish. It shouldn't be a performance you put on for an audience. He uses this beautiful phrase where he says sincerity should look out of the eye.
Look out of the eye.
Yeah, it should be so incorporated into your constitution, so deeply embedded in who you are, that people can just sense it instantly, the way a lover sees love in the eyes of their partner. You shouldn't ever have to announce, I am dealing fairly with you. Your face should vouch for your speech.
It's such a ridiculously high standard. It's easy to be humble when you're reading books, but Marcus needed a real-world example of this to prove it was possible. So who did he look up to?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture of his life, his ultimate role model, without a doubt, was his adoptive father, the Emperor Antoninus Pius. Marcus dedicates a massive section of Book 1 to painting this incredibly loving, highly detailed portrait of him.
The details are so vivid, and you can tell he's using them as a mirror to judge his own behavior. He says Antoninus was frugal. He explicitly notes that he had no boy favorites, which was a very common accepted vice of absolute power at the time.
Right.
He notes that his father didn't care about the curiosity of his clothes or how good-looking his servants were. There's this one story he writes down about how Antoninus would wear a simple, plain tunic at his country villa in Lanuvium. And he once actually apologized to a customs officer just for putting on a slightly nicer cloak at Tusculum.
We have to ask why Marcus obsessed over that specific detail about the tunic. Because when you are the Emperor of Rome, every single piece of clothing, every gesture, is a status symbol.
Yeah, it's all branding.
By writing down that his father wore plain clothes and apologized for a nice cloak, Marcus was actively programming his own brain to reject the temptations of royal vanity. He compares Antoninus directly to Socrates, saying that his father could take or leave the conveniences of life with perfect sobriety.
Meaning he wasn't attached to them?
Exactly. When luxury was present, he enjoyed it without bragging. When it was absent, he didn't complain. He could even suffer violent headaches and then immediately return to the complex business of the state, totally fresh and vigorous.
It's the perfect model for how philosophy prepares you for the friction of daily life. But how did this Stoic filter prepare him for his final exit? Because Marcus's reign didn't end with a peaceful, quiet retirement in a garden.
No, it certainly didn't.
He was out on the freezing northern frontiers again, fighting the Forever War, in 177 AD, when his health finally started to fail.
This is where the true test of his worldview comes in. Because Marcus didn't rely on the comfort of a firm belief in an afterlife. The Stoics were actually quite divided on what happens after death.
Really?
Yeah, they debated whether your soul is absorbed back into the universal fiery ether immediately, or if it survives for a little while until the next great conflagration. But Marcus didn't dwell on it. His philosophy was entirely meant for navigating this life.
Right, he has this incredible passage where he writes that whether you are destined to live 3,000 years or 30,000 years, you can't lose any life other than the exact razor-thin moment you are living right now.
It's profound.
You don't lose the past because it's already gone. You don't lose the future because you don't actually possess it yet. You only ever have the present.
And that profound focus on the present leads to his ultimate analogy for facing death. He says life is like a play. You might be an actor who feels cheated, complaining, but I only got to perform 3 acts. I didn't get to do all 5. I'm not done.
Yeah.
But Marcus reminds us that the master of the revels, the cosmic director of the play, is the one who decides when the performance is over. You, the actor, aren't accountable for the length of the script. You don't write the play. So as he writes, retire well satisfied, for he by whom you are dismissed is satisfied also.
It's just incredibly moving to read. And as a quick translation note for you listening, the reason these specific words hit with such emotional force is partly due to the translator we are using for this deep dive, Jeremy Collier.
Oh, absolutely.
Later scholars, like George Long, provided maybe more technically perfect, literal translations of the original Greek. But Collier's older 17th century text possesses this impetuosity and rhythm, as the critic Matthew Arnold called it, that makes Marcus feel like a living, breathing moralist sitting across a table from you, rather than just a dead classic trapped in a glass case at a museum.
It absolutely gives the text a heartbeat. It reminds us that there was a real man exhausted, probably freezing in a tent, trying to hold a fracturing world together, who still took the time to write down, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to throw away. Death stands at your elbow."
So what does this all mean? We've traveled from the bloody, freezing battlefields of the Danube all the way to the fiery cosmos of Stoic physics, all to learn that true power is entirely internal.
Yes, it is.
It's not about the armies you command or the treasury you control. It's about enduring hardship without complaint. It's about doing good effortlessly, the way a vine just naturally bears fruit without asking for a thank you. And it's about accepting our final exit off the stage with total grace.
It is the ultimate realization that the only territory you ever truly rule, the only thing you actually control, is your own mind.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something rooted right in the premise of this diary. If you were to sit down tonight with a blank notebook and write your own book, whose names would be on your gratitude list, who are the people who secretly, quietly shaped your character? And if you wrote down everything they taught you, would you find that your virtue is finally starting to look out of your eye?
It's a profound exercise to try.
Imagine being handed absolute power over the entire known world. It turns out the only way to keep your sanity is to realize that the most important world you need to conquer is already inside you.